Welcome to the red half of Sheffield preview pod and back on the show again. One of my all-time favorites. We jumped on about I don't know, a half hour ago and we've just been catching up for the last half hour or so. It is Cameron from the Along Came Norwich podcast, and he is here to preview Sheffield United's upcoming match against Norwich City this Saturday, a 3 p.m. kickoff. Cameron, how are you doing? Glad to have you back on the program.
I'm doing really well. It's nice to be back on as well. It's nice to be able to speak to you again after a little while.
Yeah, I will say I do miss it is it's a good thing being back in this division because I not to say when I did the previews last year were they not as good, but when we come back into this division, it's from a sense, I interviewed a lot more Americans based, obviously, in the top six teams. Now you come back and we get the teams in the championship, and it's a lot more close knit, family type atmospheres. Blue collar, so on and so forth. So I'm glad to be interviewing you again, Cameron. Well, let's talk about Norwich yesterday. 2-2 against Blackburn Rovers. Sum it up. I know you said in our text you did not, unfortunately weren't able to go to the game yesterday, but go and sum it up if you because you did say you did watch the highlights this morning. Sum it up for us.
I did, yeah. I had to miss the game just through personal life happening. But still had a lovely time yesterday anyway. And yeah, I think looking at the highlights, I think sort of seeing what other people have said about it, I think it has been an improvement. I think the general consensus was we were the better team and we should have possibly come away with the 3 points. It's a very disappointing late goal from an Norwich perspective. Um, I think a real improvement on certainly the first game away to Oxford, which I was at. I thought that was a very, very poor performance, especially for an opening game of the season where you'd hope for it to be a statement of intent. Um, Again, a slight improvement in the week as well against Stevenage, but I think it's harder to take away and draw conclusions from League Cup games because of the differences in the sides that I put out. Having said that, I think the real improvement which we are seeing is forward players getting forward and actually being able to create chances and finish them. Probably the biggest one for me has been Borja Sainz. I think he's, even though we unfortunately um, not lost Johnny Rowe fully, but due to a disagreement around whether he was going to continue to play for the club and actually requesting to be left out the squad at Oxford has meant that he's been asked to train with one of our youth teams in the meantime. But Borja Sainz has really, whilst being established in those sort of roles anyway, has really come in and allowed a level of movement down the left-hand side, lots of chance creation there. So been very impressed by him. Josh Sargent, I think, has been very stalwart and is a really reliable player. And I think that in terms of being a fan of the US national team, I think we're very excited about that prospect as well. I think the biggest issue which we've got, which we've seen in all of our games, is we are very fragile in defence, specifically at centre back. I think this is mainly due to the fact that we do have slightly aging positions there. And also, there's a lack of squad depth there. I was really surprised over the summer that we weren't signing and trying to sign more centre backs because to me, it's very obvious that's where our real weakness is in the side. And I just don't think that we'll be able to outscore teams this season in the way we did under Farker in previous seasons. And also, I think that it has, whilst that has been historically part of Norwich's sort of identity and playing style, even going back to the days of Mike Walker in the early 90s, I don't think we can rely on that as much. And we need to be really cementing that defence without obviously becoming a defensive team.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit of a shocker to see that Oxford United match on opening weekend. And as you did mention, I was able to watch simultaneously the Sheffield United game and the Norwich game yesterday. And you were right on a lot of what you said. Norwich were the better side. Do you think it's? I mean, time of recording is 8/18, so we got about two weeks left of the transfer window. Do you consider yourself lucky? Because there were rumors about the bigger clubs in the champion or in the Prem circling for Sargent. Do do you think do you find yourself lucky that nobody swooped in and got him? And are you hopeful that no one in the last 2 weeks of the window will come for him?
I'm certainly hopeful no one will come for him. I think again, now that we've sold Adamida to Celtic for an absolutely ridiculous fee, the fact that we are able to get that level, I think it's around 8 million, is you know fair play to the club because there's I don't think he was worth that. I think he's a talented player, but that was a great show from us. I'd hope that's reinvested, but um, that would then mean if we did lose him, we would be very, very weak on strikers as well, which I
Mhm,
think would be an issue. I wasn't, to be honest, I know that people were certain for him, but I was personally quite confident he would stay. I
mhm,
think if now we have Thurrock coming in as new manager, we kind of have this start of this new cycle and also a new ownership and US based ownership cycle as well. I think that he could really see himself being a part of those future plans and being a really integral part of that squad, especially with his position as an international player. I also think that you can never discount him being settled here in Norwich as a place with his family. As he playing for the club when his child was born as well. I think having to uproot your family if you do feel settled and you are going to be playing consistently, what I would like to think would have been an element as well, as you would
mhm.
think it would be for people in any job, regardless of whether you're a footballer or not. So yeah, I think I don't know if I was surprised that he stayed, but I would like to hope that nothing will change in the next few weeks on that front.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Moving forward to Saturday, before I ask you my final or second final question. Moving on to Saturday, how do you think this one falls out? What's the result? How bad do you beat us? 4-0, 3-0, 2-0,
Are
four
you are you not
four?
are you not particularly confident for Saturday then?
No, I mean, I I just think we're a bang average side, and we beat a Preston team that's absolutely horrible. That Preston team is absolutely dreadful. They didn't even lay a glove on us. QPR yesterday in our 2-2 draw, we absolutely dominated. QPR looked nowhere near. They looked almost the same way as Preston did. Then, as the match wore on in the second half, a header goes in. It's 2-1. Okay. Then we change a little bit. Doesn't really improve the side because I don't really think we can improve our side. I think we are at the best, our best starting 11. Maybe Raksaki starts. Cooper obviously will probably be in goal instead of Davies this weekend. Um, but I just think we're a bang average side. I think we're like a 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th place side in we beat, as I mentioned, we beat Preston 2-0, and then we beat a Wrexham team that everybody was drumming it up because of the hype of Disney FC and all that stuff. I get all that. But they, at the end of the day, they are a League One side, and they didn't have much hype going for this game. It was the second game of the season. And so you beat them 4-2, and you should beat them 4-2. Let's be fair. Then what happened yesterday, I just think when it comes to this, and I'll give my score predictions before you tell me how the match is. I think it's going to be 1-1 or Norwich are going to win it. I think all 3 games that we have played have been absolutely boring. Boring, 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 boring. I could be at yesterday's halftime, I was yawning, it was so bad because we were up 2-0. QPR never laid a glove. Now it got a little bit more entertaining, but it was boring in spells, and then QPR got a goal. And then it went boring again, and then QPR got their second goal. And then it finished out, and it's like, you know, I just think we're a boring average side, and I don't understand, the optimism of bringing in all these players. Yes, yes, that's the hype, but I just think we're average, average. So I'm going 1-1.
I think I would probably say the same. I think I can see it being a scoring draw, perhaps 2-2. And the reason I think is very similar. I think it's very hard to judge us at the minute based on new manager. We've only really seen 3 competitive games to kind of
Mhm,
judge where we are. But looking at United's last 2 league games, certainly, we can maybe touch on Wrexham as well. I think that you're very, very similar to us, and you are very good going forward.
mhm,
And you get forward quickly. People like O'Hare have some great through balls. Brooks as well, really comfortable at his feet. Good dribbling, taking on sort of fullbacks. I think that I can absolutely see, especially with Norwich's defensive fragilities, United scoring. Um, Kiefer Moore, I really, really like Kiefer Moore. I have done for a long time. Been a great servant for Wales. I'm not going to criticise Kiefer Moore, but I think the very like Norwich, the issue United have is again a level of defensive fragility, especially on
mhm,
set pieces. I think
mhm,
you always look very shaky defending crosses. A lot of players are able to win, attacking players able to win headers against your defence. And also, it seems to be that if an attacking team is able to overload the box, you start to see a breakdown in communication
mhm,
amongst United's backline, which potentially could be exploited by us. But to me, that paints 2 teams with a decent attack. Arguably, I think United's attack is slightly stronger than Norwich's at present,
mhm.
um, and 2 teams with a weak defence. I think means that it's a score draw all day long. And I
Yeah.
think how far home advantage comes into this for Norwich, and thinking we got 2 back-to-back home games, being able to build on that. And actually, I think we will see beating Sheffield United as a kind of a real litmus test for a season, a real statement of intent.
Mhm,
Um, I think Blackburn could have been that. I think Blackburn are going to have a good season.
mhm.
I think they're going to try to build on that. But I think United could try to see it as the same thing. But actually, I don't know about you, but I think Wilder will probably, you know, want to kind of cement his position and prove that he is somebody who can win promotion with the side. It means a lot to him. And I think also prove that I know I always got the perception with Wilder that when he signed for you in the Premier League, that it was almost a signing where good man manager, keep the players on the side, keep the fans on the side because we are going to be relegated.
Mhm.
And I think he will want to show that he's not just that, and he is there as somebody with that proven track record who can get that club promoted again.
No, you're you nailed it. I we are Our 2 teams are really, really, really similar, and you said you looked at this game as a litmus test. I look at the same way for United. It is a litmus test, and, you have all this hype around, "Oh, man, the great signings and the players they brought in," and then you have a stinker or a second half stinker against QPR, and then e like I've told everybody, we're only 2 games into the season. They play 46 games for a reason. There's 44 more of these. So never get too high and never get too low. If we stay right in the middle, you don't temper your expectations and be like, "Oh, we're gonna piss the league. We're gonna break the points record, so on and so forth." Blah 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 blah. Greatest championship team ever. Blah. That's all bull. Just go in and take every game one at a time, and don't look any further than one match. And I just think, as you mentioned, we're so susceptible. And I racked my brain. Kiefer Moore, Anel Ahmedhodzic, and now we brought in Harry Suter. That's three of probably the tallest
Mm.
defenders and one's an attacker in the entire league. And the fact that we still let set piece goals in blows my mind. I just like I am absolutely flabbergasted. But I mean, eventually you would hope they'll get it sorted out, and we'll make our defense a little bit stronger, almost to where it was, in the promotion season 2 years ago. But I I think Wilder's going to be given time. It all boils down to if this takeover that's been the longest takeover in EFL history ever goes through. Are the new owners going to come in, and are they going to want to keep Wilder, the played for the club, he's one of our own, the whole so on and so forth? Are they going to want him, or are they going to want to put their own man in charge? Because if the rumors are true and you believe it, they want us back in the Premier League as fast as possible because they want to get that increased revenue. So if they don't see Wilder's fit, who do they bring in to get us to that benchmark, to get us over that hump and get us back into that godforsaken league that I don't ever want to play in? But I mean, only time will tell, I guess.
No, and I think you're right. I think it is the 2 seasons in the Premier League is the point at which you become disillusioned
Yeah.
for a start.
Yeah.
No, I think I've got respect for Wilder, and I think that both as a track record, I think he's a really talented manager, really understands the club, and he's the type of manager who I would like to see, that appointment work for him.
Mhm.
Um, Having said that, I absolutely hate having to play against him, especially when he's in charge of United, because he is very partisan. Um,
uh,
but no, and I think it's very similar for Norwich. I think that we I don't want to say it's an arrogance,
mhm.
but I think it's more just in the past 10 years we have come to expect a certain level of performance in the championship. And all the cliches aside, everyone can beat everyone. You know, it's a competitive league. We know that. Having said that, when we are in the championship, we expect to be challenging for promotion. If we are not at least in the playoffs, we will see that season as a failure.
Yeah.
Me saying that now, that is the expectation. The reality makes me think that this season, a mid-table finish again is likely, and actually an improvement on that could be, you know, as long as there's an improvement, say on the season before last, and you can see that we're trying to build something, you can accept that. I think it is harder when we were in the playoffs last year, and actually I thought that we were quite a poor side last year,
Mhm.
despite finishing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Didn't expect to beat Leeds. Definitely wouldn't have beaten Southampton. Um, and I think as well, on a sort of on a broader sense, now that we're seeing this wider takeover by Mark Antonazio, again, very very similar to United. The difference is ours is kind of it's been long, but it's been long in a very planned way. Becoming a minor stakeholder, giving the club money, then converting those debts into shares. Like, it was always going to be, it was always on track, always going to be this gradual transition of power with D.D. Smith and Michael Wynne Jones becoming minority shareholders, life presidents, that sort of thing. But I think with that, what I personally would like to see, and I can't speak for anybody else in this, is that obviously I'd love to get promoted. I'd love to stay in the Premier League, but I think that's much harder to do. What I'd really like to see is just see us try to get everything else right. So think, well, we'll develop our own players. We won't be in debt. We
Mhm.
will engage with the community, with the fan base. We'll have a sensible ticket pricing policy. We'll try to be inclusive, get everything else right. And
Mhm.
then if the results on the pitch don't match that expectation, then for me, not only can I forgive that lack of
Mhm.
success, because otherwise, if you're going to make sacrifices on everything else for success and it doesn't come off, well, the success is all you've got then. But also, if that success doesn't come off, then I would argue we're not the problem. If being a well-run club that isn't in debt doesn't bring you success,
Mhm.
then we shouldn't be the ones being blamed for that. But that's sort of a wider point.
Yeah, and you did answer my last question because I was going to ask you where Norwich are going to finish, but if you're that's why I see us as two similar sides, and we're going to be bang average. I just feel both of these teams are exactly the same, ninth to 11th. Maybe if they get a right signing or something right in either this window now or in January, they could maybe push for playoffs. But I just don't see it in either one of these teams. They're exactly the same. And I mean, I was hoping so bad you guys beat Leeds in the playoffs last year, but that was for all for naught. But um yeah, it's really weird how looking at both of these teams, I draw a lot of comparisons to, and it makes me check my vision and like, am I looking at the same team just in different colors? Um Before we get out of here, Cameron, you have been asked the question because you've been on the podcast before. I'm changing it up for this year.
Okay.
Instead of what's your favorite go-to match day drink, I will say, do you have a superstitious match day food?
Oh, superstitious food. Um, I don't know. I mean, yes and no, I suppose. A thing which I've been complaining about for a long time is that I think clubs should try harder with food.
Mhm.
You know, like I would have any time that I go to an away game and they have like a really good food selection, then I am like very excited. I think ones which I love actually. One for sort of your Sheffield based listeners, which is probably the thing I look forward to more than anything with either Sheffield club, are the Berries pork sandwiches.
Hmm,
The jumbo one double dipped, if you're interested.
really?
And I don't know if they do it at Bramall Lane, but at Hillsborough they do a steak and Henson's relish pie as well, which is one of my favourite
Yeah.
football pies. But I would say out of any football ground, like that's up there. The Middlesbrough have their parmo in a bun, which is like a chicken parmesan sandwich. It's like a Teesside delicacy in a bun's very good as well. But
Nice.
Berry pork sandwiches, I think for both sides of the Sheffield divide is a real favourite, and I think is something which the whole city can be proud of, and one of the best things about an away game at either Bramall Lane or Hillsborough.
Yeah, yeah. A little inside for those listening and watching. Cameron's wife, or I'll say other half, is supports
Fiance.
the other half supports the other half of Sheffield and Sheffield Wednesday. And if you tune into the Sheffield Wednesday preview pod that I'll do, she will be on there. So Cameron is well versed in the city of Sheffield. Um, but Cameron, before we get out of here, drop where we can find the Along Come Norwich podcast and where we can follow you on the social medias.
Yes, so you can find Along Come Norwich on at Along Come Nodge, which is Nodge being Nodge, which is a sort of local nickname for Norwich. That's on Twitter and Instagram, as well as the Along Come Norwich website where I write lots of articles, and you can also find the podcast there.
Cool deal. Cool deal. If you haven't done so, Red Half of Sheffield on YouTube, at Red Sheffield on Twitter X, Facebook Red Sheffield, Instagram Red Half of Sheffield. And until we preview match day 4 in the Sky EFL Championship, I will leave you with this: up the blades.